Sojourner Truths, Step, Stomp, Stride by Andrea Davis Pickney and Brian Pickney. Read by Irene Rose Brown. Sojourner's Truth, Step, Stomp, Stride by Andrea Davis Pickney and Brian Pickney. Sojourner Truth was as strong and tall as most men. She was big, black, and so beautiful. Born into slavery, Sojourner ran away as a young girl. She cherished her freedom and believed it should be granted to everyone. But she didn't fight for it with her mighty fist, and she didn't stomp for it with her giant boots. Sojourner spoke the truth and struggled against injustice with her brave, beautiful words. With lyrical text and spirited illustrations, the award-winning team of Andrea Davis Pickney and Brian Pickney brings one of America's greatest heroes to life. Following Sojourner from her courageous plantation escape to her meeting with Abraham Lincoln, this is a stirring portrait of a woman who pulled herself up by her great big bootstraps. A warrior for justice above all else, Sojourner allowed no bias to cross her path without a fight. She was big, she was black, she was so beautiful. Her name was Sojourner. Truth be told, she was meant for great things. Meant for speaking, meant for preaching, meant for teaching the truth about freedom. Big, black, beautiful, true. That was Sojourner. Sojourner was born a slave. Her master named her Isabella. Sojourner's mother, Mau Bet, and her father, James Baum Free, took a first look at their child and decided to call her Belle. Seems her newborn's cry was ringing in good news. Nothing quiet about that girl. Belle grew quickly. She was almost 6 feet tall while still a child. Along with her size 12 feet, she had hands like hams, lots of muscle on her bones too. And no one dared pick a bone with Belle. She could plow, hoist, and haul better than any child her age. With her big-soled shoes, she could stomp the beetles that tried to eat her master's corn. Belle's strength and size made her valuable. She was sold away from her parents when she was 9 years old, and to 2 more masters after that. This was the ugly way of slavery. Belle hated being treated as property, and she hated shucking, boiling, hauling, and working all day for her master, John Dumont. John Dumont knew how strong and capable Belle was. He promised to free her if she worked extra hard for him. Belle wanted her freedom more than anything, so she stepped to it. She worked hard for many years. She polished Dumont's brass until it gleamed. She mucked his horse stalls. She turned the Dumont family butter twice as fast. Finally, Belle went to John Dumont, ready to be freed. But John did not honor his promise. That's when Belle decided to run away. In search of freedom, Belle ran. She fled like tomorrow wasn't ever gonna come. She covered some ground. Child, she got gone. She refused to stop until she saw hope. Belle ran right up to Hope's front door. She came to a farm owned by a Quaker couple, Isaac and Maria Van Wagoner. The Quakers were abolitionists. They believed in freedom for all people. Isaac and Maria offered Belle shelter. When Belle's master, John Dumont, caught up with her, Isaac offered to buy Belle's services. It wasn't Belle's work that he wanted to free her. Belle's master took the money from Isaac, then he got gone. Right then, Isaac freed Belle. And even though Belle didn't have to run anymore, she set out on her own. Belle went to New York City, where she could be truly free. And oh, was that freedom ever sweet! Freedom made Belle want to take the heels of her size 12s and kick them up high. Belle celebrated her freedom by marching her feet straight to a job. Belle worked as a maid who made money for the work she did. No more master, no more cotton to bale, beetles to stomp, or corn to shuck. Belle soon learned that to celebrate freedom, she had to speak her beliefs. For her, freedom meant helping others. Freedom meant putting her foot down for what she knew was right. Freedom meant she would travel up and down the land to share her ideas. That's when Belle changed her name. She gave her slave name the Boot and called herself Sojourner Truth. She said the name Sojourner was just right for someone who was a traveler. And truth, well, that was what Sojourner did best. She told it like it was. Sojourner couldn't read or write, but she could sure speak her mind. And now she was free to go wherever she wanted to find folks who could help spread the word about freedom. She met many abolitionists, women and men who spoke out against slavery. In her travels, Sojourner made a friend named Olive Gilbert. Olive was an abolitionist. She read the Bible to Sojourner. Sojourner memorized every word in that good book. She could recite the entire Bible, from the begats to the beatitudes. Sojourner told Olive all about her childhood as a slave. Olive wrote down Sojourner's story. In 1850, the narrative of Sojourner Truth, a Southern slave, was published. Sojourner carried her book with her everywhere. She spoke about the unfair treatment of black people and women. When Sojourner preached, she let her words fly, free as the highest dove in the sky, free as the sky itself. Sojourner's voice was packed with power. As she traveled, she learned even more about the meaning of freedom. She found that freedom is not a place. Freedom is the fire that burns inside. And Sojourner Truth, she was full of fire. Once, when Sojourner Truth was scheduled to speak at a rally, someone threatened to burn down the building. That didn't stop Sojourner. She said, "I will speak upon its ashes." In 1851, Sojourner step-stomped to a women's rights convention in a church in Akron, Ohio. There was no rain on the day of that convention, child, but oh, was there thunder! What struck that spot was strong and loud. It was Sojourner's step, stomp, stride. There weren't any big, black, beautiful preachers in that church, yet the main question was, should women have the same rights as men? And you can bet the men at the meeting had something to say about that. Most of the men were ministers. Like Sojourner, they knew all the words of the Bible. And same as Sojourner, these men were following their own strides. One minister said that men should have superior rights and privileges, because men were smarter than women. The next man to speak said that men should be allowed to boss women around because Jesus had been a man and that God wanted men to rule the world. Then came two more speakers. The first one opened his Bible and said that women were lower than men because in the Garden of Eden, Eve had given in to the serpent and had eaten the apple of temptation. This minister friend said that women were too weak to deserve equal rights because they needed men to hold open doors for them and help them into carriages and over puddles. Well, that was enough for Sojourner. She stood up. She stepped from the back of that church to the front. She stormed past the stupidity of the men who had just spoken. Sojourner put one big, black, beautiful foot in front of the other, and she stomped on the floorboards of ignorance that were underneath. To her, the arguments made by the men were the Beatles from her past. She couldn't wait to stomp, stomp, stomp all over them. Sojourner took each man's belief and slammed it down like a nail. Her fist struck a hammer's blow to the podium. Bam! She said, "You say women need to be helped into carriages and lifted over ditches. Nobody ever helps me into carriages, and ain't I a woman?" Bam! Down came Sojourner's hand and an iron fist, smashing the lies of the day. Bam! Bam! "Look at me," Sojourner went on. "I have plowed, and I have planted, and I have gathered into barns. No man could head me, and ain't I a woman?" Now Sojourner was ready to preach her beliefs about what the Bible meant to her. She spoke to the man who told of God's will. "What did your Christ come from?" she asked. "From God and a woman. Man had nothing to do with him." Then Sojourner talked about Eve and the apple in the Garden of Eden. She said, if the first woman God ever made was strong enough to turn the world upside down all alone, then women ought to be able to turn it back and get it right side up again. Now came both fists. Bam! Bam! When Sojourner was done, she told the congregation, "Now old Sojourner hasn't got nothing more to say." And that was the truth. Sojourner had spoken the honest to goodness. She was ready to step, and step she did. Her size 12 hit their stride. Off she walked. Big, black, beautiful, true. That was Sojourner. More about Sojourner Truth. Sojourner Truth was born in Ulster County, New York in 1797. The exact date is unknown. She was the 9th child born to her parents. Even as a girl, Sojourner had a deep belief in God. She often felt led by God's guidance. This prompted her to take the name Sojourner Truth. Sojourner Truth was the mother of 5 children. She often fled with them in tow. Over the course of her lifetime, she managed to obtain freedom for them all. After Sojourner's book was published, she supported herself with its proceeds. The book had an introduction by noted abolitionist William Lloyd Garrison. Sojourner's shawl, bonnet, and in later life, her wire-rimmed glasses became her signature dress. This clothing was similar to Quaker attire. By the early 1850s, Sojourner had become a popular lecturer in many states. Posters announced her upcoming engagements. She spoke to standing room only crowds. She often sang hymns during her speeches. A women's abolitionist group made Sojourner a white banner that said, proclaim liberty throughout the land and to all the inhabitants thereof. She sometimes wore this for public appearances. As she traveled, Sojourner kept a book of life, a scrapbook of mementos. On October 29th, 1864, Sojourner met President Abraham Lincoln, who signed her book for Auntie Sojourner Truth. Sojourner Truth died on November 26, 1883, in Battle Creek, Michigan. She was about 86. Her friend Olive Gilbert visited 2 weeks before her death. Sojourner sang this hymn to Olive on that day. It was early in the morning, just at the break of day, when he arose, when he arose, when he arose, and went to heaven on a cloud. Thank you for listening to Sojourner's Truth, Step, Stomp, Stride by Andrea Davis Pickney and Brian Pickney. Read to you by Irene Rose Brown. Thank you for joining me today. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you would like to see more future readings, hit the subscribe button with the bell so you'll be sure to get my next notification. Thank you and God bless. Shalom.